Now, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Taggart's my name from the Department of Building and Civil Engineering, and I'll be the conference chair today. I'd like to thank you for coming with a great crowd, and today with visitors from the 4 provinces of Ireland, and quite a number of guests also from the UK. Before we get underway proper, I just wanted to run through very quickly a couple of housekeeping issues. So emergency procedures, a lot of people from outside the college. We've no drills or anything planned for today, so any fire alarm sounding should be treated as a genuine event. In this room, room 1000, with 4 exits, one front left, one front right. At the rear, one front, rear left and rear right. Our assembly point is point F, which is on the Dublin Road by the bus stop, which is roughly in that direction. If you just follow the students, if the alarm sounds, we'll get there fairly quickly. Car parking now, we've agreed with Sean Fahey in the Buildings Estates office. We're going to take a softly approach today to car parking with so many visitors from outside GMIT. So if you're doing any of these things, you're fine, including if you're parking any of the green and yellow parking spaces, that'll be fine for you. If you're doing any of these things, you might be in a little bit of trouble. The posters are out in the lobby with the rules. Please ask any of the GMIT staff if you're in any doubt. We want you to enjoy the day in safety and comfort, and to be getting home in the evening without any delay. We have a competition sponsored by the Addis Group, Hard Hack Challenge. Entry forms have been given out. 2:15 is the deadline for giving those into the box. Box will be out in the front reception here. Prize is an iPad mini. There's terms and conditions apply. Most of them are fairly easy questions, but there's 1 or 2 photographs in there to sort the ladies and the gentlemen out from the boys and girls. Some people are asking about CPD attendance certs. Morchin Watchner will be available just out as Morchin, just standing up there, so you recognise him. SCSI, CIOB, CABE, the architects and Siri are all accredited in the event. So if you see Morchin, he'll be available outside in the lobby for the tea break, and also for 20 minutes before we break for lunch. Just after we break for lunch, and 20 minutes before we come back for lunch. Just wanted to say a word or two for people who are aware of our new president, Dr. Fergal Barry. So since the last conference, Dr. Barry has joined GMIT as our new president. As you would have read in the press, Dr. Barry has stated one of his key priorities is establishing an ambitious master plan for capital development here in Galway. This hopefully will address our needs for the future, as well as the shortfall in facilities that have developed during the economic crisis. This priority alone will of course stoke the interest of us all here today at the largest annual gathering of the construction industry and built environment in the west of Ireland. So I'll now ask Dr. Barry to formally welcome you here today and to declare the conference open.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good morning, everybody, and you're welcome to the 6th Annual GMIT International Construction Management Day Conference. In the wake of the very recent economic crisis, our Department of Building and Civil Engineering here at GMIT, along with our sister departments across the higher education sector, have been through a number of very difficult years. However, in the past 2 years, we've seen a significant increase in demand for places in our built environment programs. Thankfully, both numbers of applications and entry points are again on the rise within the department. Following the growing emergence of Building Information Modelling, BIM, GMIT staff here have taken a central role in the newly established Western BIM Hub. This is an organisation set up to promote BIM and share best practice and knowledge here in the West. To date, we've hosted a number of evening events here in GMIT to share our knowledge and experiences of BIM. Information on joining the group and upcoming events can be found at www.westernbimhub.com. It's all one word. In supporting the need for upskilling in BIM in the region, GMIT are now offering a 2-year Level 8 programme at higher diploma level in BIM. This programme has evolved from several industry collaborations to date and that we've undertaken in the past few years. Details can be found on our website. On the jobs front, the picture for graduates of our department is also very rosy. Indeed, it's fair to say there is currently a shortage of our graduates to fill available opportunities. In 2015, we were able to arrange a 3-day student careers event specifically for built environment students. A great number of you here today from the professional bodies and from industry helped with that event, and we offer you our sincere thanks and appreciation for that assistance. Companies seeking graduates at the event today, including all local firms, should make contact with our members of academic staff. Indeed, one such company, Rattigan, are included amongst the many firms attending today also. And we offer our hearty congratulations to our colleague from the Department of the Building and Civil Engineering, Deputy Sean Canny, who's also a former employee of Rattigan's. Sean was last week elected as independent TD for Galway East. Deputy Canny joined GMIT in 2007 from Rattigan's and has played a leading role in the development of the construction economics and quantity surveying programme here in GMIT. We will of course miss Sean, but wish him well in his new role, and we know that he will be a demanding advocate for both GMIT, East Galway and the west of Ireland. In particular, I hope that Sean will be able to help address the well-known failure to streamline planning and delivery of key projects, which, if not delivered, will be detrimental to our economic outlook. For example, the last significant strategic investment on this site was some 15 years ago by Rattigan's. The cranes you've seen on your arrival this morning across the road are known locally as Sean Canny's cranes, as they were used to build this building that you sit in today. Ireland may very well lose its competitive advantage if our government does not think more strategically about the long-term infrastructure needs of our country. GMIT, for example, has a €90 million capital investment deficit and is faced with a 35% growth in student numbers out to 2028. Unlike the university sector, we have no approved borrowing framework for the Institute of Technology sector. Indeed, since the 17th of October 2011 to the 23rd of December 2015, 5 of the 7 Irish universities have borrowed €420 million from the European Investment Bank at 50% financing. That's a fund of €840 million available for capital development within the university sector alone. This is but one example of the need for investment in our social infrastructure, from housing supply to health provision to inadequate transport infrastructure to energy and to education. Indeed, on the housing scene, some 4,500 housing units are needed in Galway alone. A coordinated approach of providing student accommodation concurrently will also help to take the pressure off social housing. Many voices, including the European Commission as of last week, are now calling for dedicated action in Ireland to address this macroeconomic imbalance. Constraints limiting the construction sector and the supply of housing could generate risks if these imbalances are not resolved. These constraints may indeed be being addressed, but the extent to which announced measures will be effective and free of adverse unintended effects will need to be monitored closely. Still, others are calling for a centralised unit in the Department of the Taoiseach, Engineers Ireland, for example, and this unit should aim to plan and manage capital development projects nationally. This would be similar in scope to Infrastructure UK, a unit which sits in the Treasury and coordinates investment across the British Government departments. The recently announced €27 billion capital plan in Ireland is very welcome, but is very insufficient to meet the needs of an expanding economy. With macroeconomic forecasts for Ireland being revised upwards, for instance, real GDP growth in 2015 was 7%, the country's capital infrastructure will not be enough to meet demand in the coming years. We are investing too little to meet demand. Delivery is taking too long to meet demand, and we're not thinking strategically enough about the long-term needs of our country. The capital spending plan 2016 to 2021 is backloaded towards the end of the plan, as government have given preference to tax cuts and other expenditure increases at this time. In 2016, for example, government investment is actually projected to decrease by 1.4% over 2015 levels. A recent report from consultants McKinsey estimates 51 trillion of infrastructural investment will be needed worldwide between now and 2030 to keep up with the expected growth in economic output, or GDP. That would require countries to invest an amount equivalent to between 3 and 4% of GDP each year. Ireland, however, plans to just spend less than 2%, only half. This will hold our country back. Poorly planned and poorly performing infrastructure actually costs economies a good deal of money, and it also limits economic investment and development as well as social development. For a variety of different reasons, it makes sense to invest now in infrastructure, and it makes sense to have a long-term coordinated plan, because that gives certainty and gives a degree of confidence, and certainty and confidence are the basis of economic development. We should aim to benchmark continuously against and research advanced economies where construction represents 7 to 8% of GDP, and avoid the scenarios where we might return to rates of 12% and beyond, as in the heady days of the Celtic Tiger. The past year has seen a range of research activity undertaken within the Department of Building and Civil Engineering. Today, in the technical session, we will be representing a case study on the new human biology building, where GMIT staff, in conjunction with industry partners, is undertaking research into eliminating construction waste and improving the efficiency of construction sites in terms of their energy and water use. This research is collaborative, and presentations today will also include perspectives from the project architect and the construction project manager. A significant number of our department staff are currently undertaking additional study and PhD at master's level. Many local firms have supported their endeavours, and again, we thank you for this support. We're always on the lookout for future opportunities, so please contact us if you have projects to pursue. At GMIT, it is essential that our students are equipped for the workplace, and thereafter are positioned to develop and enhance their careers and professional standing. Accreditation of our programmes is an essential ingredient on that path. Our built environment programmes are currently fully accredited by the CIOB under a national agreement signed in 2004. However, due to changes of governance following the establishment of QQI, that agreement will shortly expire. We have applied for and are very near the end of a process to become an accredited centre for CIOB in our own right, and we're hopeful that this process will be concluded soon after Easter. We're also involved in a parallel process of application with CABE CEO Dr. John Hopper, with a view to our programmes becoming accredited by CABE for the first time. We're working hard on this, and we remain hopeful that this accreditation can be in place for September 2016. Our links with SCSI remain as strong as ever, and I note our ongoing educational partnership agreement with them. A very fruitful partnership panel visit took place last year, and we look forward to both sustaining and indeed developing our accredited links with SCSI and supporting that partnership model. Additional agreements with EI and the RIAI see all our programmes comprehensively tied into clear professional pathways for our graduates as they embark upon their chosen careers within the various built environment disciplines. Generally, on the CEO front, initial indications from the 1st of February are very positive and indicate strong demand across our 4 built environment programmes. Construction and civil engineering are fantastic careers, proven to take a person anywhere around the world. There are still, however, not enough women entering the field. Indeed, only about 4% of our undergraduate population in engineering are women. Engineers Ireland, amongst other professional bodies, has a programme which sees it going out to schools to meet with children in primary and secondary to encourage the students to choose engineering and construction as a career. Before I close, I want to thank our sponsors, the Western Centre of the Chartered Institute of Building in Ireland, to Thomas Lenine, Mark Kane and Mandy Coleman, who I met earlier, for their kind help and assistance today and throughout the year and over the years. The Western Region of the Society of Chartered Surveyors of Ireland, to Patricia Staunton and the local committee, who again have supported us today and indeed in many events during the past year. The Southern Ireland region of the Chartered Association of Building Engineers, thanks to David Courtney and David Keane for their work today and throughout the year. I would also like to congratulate David Courtney on his recent election to the Central Council of CABE. As the conference has grown over the years, we have many regular friends who travel great distances to support us from all over Ireland. I wish to acknowledge their efforts and to offer our sincere thanks for your continued support. I'd also like to acknowledge those who have travelled further to be with us today. David Taylor, Vice President of CABE, and his wife Caroline have travelled from the UK to be with us, and David will be speaking later on current trends and legislative impacts in design. We're surrounded today by presidents. David Little, President of CIOB in Ireland, is in attendance also. Chris Chivers, who I met earlier this morning, worldwide president of CIOB, has also travelled from the UK to be with us today and will be speaking with us in the afternoon. With the world becoming ever more globalised, Chris will consider the impact of risk in the construction industry and also reflect on his recent visit on behalf of CIOB to China. A special thanks goes to Justin Malloy, representing the Construction Industry Federation in Galway and the West. As always, Justin has provided great assistance with arrangements today, and I note that both the CIF National President Michael Stone and Director of Housing and Planning Herbert Fitzpatrick are scheduled to speak today following Justin's efforts. Finally, a very special thanks goes to Martin Taggart. An event today would not be possible without a leader. I want to thank you, Martin, for the leadership you've shown around organising this event today. The cranes across the road also brought Martin here. I'll let him tell you that story. Welcome to the staff and students attending from our sister colleges. In particular, we have large numbers from IT Sligo, Letterkenny Institute of Technology, Cork Institute of Technology, as well as a number of postgraduate students from NUIG. All of you, as delegates, I want to thank you for attending our conference today. I hope you enjoy the conference. I hope you find it stimulating. I hope you will benefit from it. Enjoy your day with us at GMIT. Thank you very much.
Our first speaker this morning is John O'Regan. John is our only permanent speaker at the conference, and I don't know if we could say it's a tradition yet, but it's been 6 years, John. And John was with us since 2010. John and AECOM, his company, very good friends of GMIT and support us during the year. Things like student placements, sponsorships, mock interviews with students for final year, and past year informed our programmatic review process to a great extent. John is the director of AECOM and acts as the head of programme, cost and consultancy on the island of Ireland. He was promoted into that role since the last conference, so congratulations, John, well-deserved appointment. John usually tells me off for ruining his first few slides by saying too much about AECOM, so I've learned my lesson this year. So I'll ask John to come forward and present his usual and very comprehensive annual roundup of the industry and its prospects. Thank you.
Morning, everybody, and thank you, Martin, for the introduction. I'm delighted to be here again. I would like to echo what Dr. Barry said about this conference. Martin kicked this off in 2010, and when you look back on it, what a time to start a regular conference on the construction industry. The industry was genuinely at rock bottom at that stage, and it's testament to the perseverance with this project that it's got to this point, and it's got such great numbers and growing numbers every year. So I would like to congratulate Martin again. So I am going to touch a little bit on AECOM. I'm going to skip over those slides, I think. But I'm going to talk more about the construction industry in Ireland. We publish this review every year. It's an annual review of the construction industry. There are copies outside, or you can get them on our website. And that's the main focus of the presentation, and just some of the things that I see and we see as key things going on in the industry at the moment. So to give you a sense of who AECOM are, AECOM stands originally for Architecture, Engineering, Consulting, Operations and Maintenance. In Ireland, it's primarily a consultancy business working in the construction field, the element of the business that I'm in is project management and cost management, quantity surveying, but there's also a strong team of engineers, civil structural, MEP, transportation, environmental engineers, and there's a team of 600 across the island. I'm saying this because our business has grown and changed over the last number of years. It is a collaboration of a series of different businesses that have come together. And I'd just like to touch on an element of the business that I came from, the project and cost management bit of the business, PKS as it was, then Davis Langdon PKS, and then into AECOM. It's a very old business. It was established in 1860. So at the time of the rising in 1916, it was already 50 years old. So at the start of this year, when the centenary celebrations were being thought of, I wanted to check out what was going on in the business 100 years ago. So I went to the Irish Architectural Archive. They hold all the PKS or AECOM papers from that period, and I asked them what there was. And they said there's some fascinating stuff there. Maybe fascinating if you're a QS, but I thought it was fascinating. They have bills of quantities which were done for the reconstruction of the GPO, the Metropole Hotel, and probably the most fascinating and maybe revealing about quantity surveyors at the time was the diaries that were there from around that period. So the guy running the business at that stage was a guy called Ernest John Anthony, and this is his diary from the time of the Easter Rising. So for Monday the 24th, Easter Monday, he had written in holiday, golf all day. And then he was economical with his words, but obviously at the end of the day, he said, Sinn Féin rising in the city at 12 noon. The next day, he made the effort to go to work. He got as far as Portobello Bridge, looked a bit rough, went home and played golf for the rest of the day. So the next day, Wednesday the 26th, again, very economical with his words. He didn't even bother to write that. He just wrote, repeat of yesterday. So you'll be pleased to hear that after Wednesday, he gave up going into work and he just played golf and went gardening every day. So I don't know what that says about QSs. But by Monday the 8th, he was down with the Board of Works, which would have been the equivalent of the OPW at the time, and he was on site in the GPO working out the costs of removing the debris and reconstructing it. So that's just a little bit interesting thing, looking a little bit into the past. Coming to very much the present day and to the future, just a sense of some of the projects that AECOM are involved in. This is an introduction to Noel as well. This is the HP building that was built here in Galway. We provided employers rep and project management services on it. The LinkedIn building in headquarters in Dublin, I think, shows the kind of projects that AECOM are more and more involved in. We're providing all the services on that, including all the engineering and so on. Architecture is the only element that we're not doing. That's being done by RKD. Central Bank of Ireland on the docks. That's where there's a lot of work going on at the moment. Then the education sector, the health sector, Dublin Airport again, the infrastructure sector, and then the Curragh Racecourse. We built the Killinane stand, or did the QSing for the Killinane stand in Galway Racecourse, and we're now looking at the new stand in the Curragh, which is going to be a very exciting project over the next while. So that's a little bit of a sense of AECOM in Ireland. Internationally, it is a very big organisation, Fortune 500 company, 18 billion turnover and so on. So we have a very strong global team and global resource and information. So that's the sales pitch. Going to the review, as I say, the review is a reflection on the Irish construction industry of the last year, 2015, and forward into 2016. One of the features that we've looked at more this year is being more focused on All Ireland, as we are an All Ireland business, north and south, and looking at more than just the building side of things, looking at the civil and infrastructure side of things as well. So this is a graph that is familiar. It's a graph that I typically use every year, and it's interesting to look at it every year and see where we are on the curve of construction output. So down the left-hand side is construction output in billions. Across the bottom is the time scale, and the blue line is construction output, either actual or forecast. So you see where we were back at the peak in 2007, up at 35 billion plus construction output, and where we were in 2010 when Martin kicked off these conferences, at the bottom, just over 7 billion. And you can see that since around 2011, 2012, we have had consistent year-on-year growth in the construction industry. So last year, 2015, output was at around 12.25 billion. we're forecasting that we'll have another year, which was about 15% growth on the previous year. We're forecasting another year of significant growth, a similar order, which will get construction output up to around 14.5 billion. So you might say, well, look, is that a bubble? Are we in a boom time now? Is that sustainable? Or how does it compare with where it should be? And what the green line there shows is a line which demonstrates 12% of GNP. And the reason that line is there is because economists would say that in a mature economy, construction output should be in the order of 12% of GNP. So if you look at 2016 there, it does show where output might be expected to be in a fully functioning and sustainable economy, if you like, at around 20 billion plus. So we're not there. I think Dr. Barry's comments in relation to infrastructure and so on bear that out as well. So that's kind of where we have been and where we're going, we think, and that just shows kind of the level of growth that we might get there. So in the review, there are, and I'll leave you to look at these afterwards if you like, there are various statistics in the review demonstrating the breakdown of the industry across the different sectors. And I think this is probably an interesting one. The workers on the left that you can see there indicate the level of construction employment. So the far left is 2007, when there were about 270,000 people working in the industry, about 50,000 of them non-domestic people. And then where we are now, at around 125,000 people working in the industry, and about 15,000 of them non-domestic. So, and the next slide, on the right-hand side, the level of housing output, again reflecting what we already know. We're looking at about 12,000 houses being built in 2015. That's probably about half of where it should be for a mature economy. And particularly scary is probably the purple box on the right there, which is the number of social houses that were built in the first 9 months of 2015, which is about 250. So that's pretty shocking. So another graph here, which just indicates the year-on-year change in output and tender prices and employment. And what that indicates is you can see around 2000, you see the zero mark across, that's zero growth, if you like. So you can see around 2012, we moved from the year-on-year negative figures to growth, and that was the turning point, really. So this slide represents the public sector capital programme, and it's what Dr. Barry mentioned earlier in terms of the 5-year programme from 2016 to 2021, with 2016 showing that output figure of around 3.8 billion. And that is a historic low in terms of output. And the increase in output that's indicated is only around 200 to 250 million a year as it picks up over the years. So it is at a low level. It is at a historic low level. So that level of investment is recognisably small. So I've been saying, look, we're looking at 15% growth again. It's obviously not coming out of the public sector. Where is it coming out of? Well, it's coming out of the foreign direct investment sector, the IT people that are going into Dublin and elsewhere, offices, data centres. It's coming from pharmaceuticals. It's coming from medtech. That's where the growth is coming from. I did use this slide last year, and I won't apologise for that because I think it just demonstrates the cycle of the kind of commercial development side of things. From where we were a number of years ago, pre-boom or in the boom time, when people saw a development opportunity, they bought their site, they started going with the development. Got to the point, the crash came, the loans went into default, the assets became distressed, whether they were completed properties or development sites. Then people started wondering what to do with them. The banks, the receivers, NAMA, whoever was, or the developers, whoever was in control of the site or the loan, had to think long and hard about what they were going to do. And that did take quite a lot of time. And it took 5 years for a lot of the sites and the loans to get to even to that point. But over the last few years, there's been a huge amount of loan sales and asset sales. Those assets are now in new hands, and those new owners are working out what to do with them. They're working out whether to hold them, whether to lease them, whether to upgrade them, whether to sell them, whether to develop them. And for us in the construction sector, obviously the upgrade and develop is the bit that we're interested in, and it is starting to happen, but there is also still a lot of opportunities that are out there that's sitting in the option appraisal stage and haven't moved forward yet. So the image there that you see of a building, that's the Central Bank headquarters building in Dublin. It was the Anglo-Irish Bank headquarters, that's what it was going to be. Sat like that for about 5 years. That's what it is going to be turned into. It'll look like that probably by December this year. It's under construction at the moment, the facades are going onto it. And it's that area of Dublin which is particularly visible and particularly exciting in terms of construction activity. So this is the Docklands SDZ, and this just shows the names that all of us know of many of them putting their European headquarters into that area, and it is a very exciting area and there's a lot of activity there at the moment. So I'm kind of conscious of the message that I'm putting out there as being very, very positive, growth, everything's great, FDI, commercial and so on. And there are challenges that are out there in terms of capacity, the level of this picture, if you Google Dublin Docklands Cranes 2007 in Google Images, that's what you come up with. That was the level of activity then. I don't think we're going to get back to that stage, but we are in certain sectors, in certain bits of the country, getting very busy again, and that is throwing up challenges. And one of the big challenges at the moment is capacity. We're saying that the industry output is not at the level where it should end up, but it has grown very, very fast over the last number of years. So the capacity of a number of the specialist suppliers and main contractors is at a level that can't really support the level of activity that's there now. And some of the pinch points that we're seeing now, we're starting to see capacity issues in terms of formwork, facades. You really have to order your facades about a year before you want them on site on a significant building, and the number and scale of Irish facades manufacturers and installers is limited, growing but limited. On the MEP side of it, mechanical and electrical, I'll let Mick touch on this later maybe, but again, an area, a specialist area, there's going to be a huge amount of activity in the IT, data centres and pharma sector over the year ahead. So there is again a pinch point in the industry there. And then when you look at that level of output and you think that maybe there'll be 10 projects of 200 million plus that'll get started in 2016, and then you look at the turnover of the main contractors, and these are the 2014 figures, they've gone up significantly since then, but it just gives an indication of, particularly at that top end of the market, the tier 1 projects, and the capacity of the industry to take them on and the challenge that is ahead of us. And that pinch point exists for design teams too. So I've been giving this message over the last little while. Everything's booming, everything's great, and so on. I'm conscious that there are other people who've given that message over the last while. It hasn't gone down too well, and I think the reality is that that boom is in particular geographies and particular sectors. It's in the Dublin area, and it's in the FDI and the commercial office sector. So we are looking at a two-tier industry at the moment. It's very hot in Dublin. It's growing everywhere else in the country, but it's just not growing at the same rate or anything resembling the same rate. So there are signs of improvement. So I think one of the things that's important for areas like Galway and the West is that the public sector is still important. The FDI sector is where the big opportunities are probably, but the public sector remains important to us. And as we see, the cranes next door are for a public sector project. One of the things I like to focus on is the competitiveness of this region against Dublin. It is getting tough for new businesses coming into Dublin. The rents are higher, it's harder to get staff, it's harder to get accommodation for staff. So that's something that outside of Dublin we can certainly offer. Northern Ireland, similar in that it is showing a degree of growth. Construction output went up about 2%. So there is growth, but again, it's much more modest growth. The level of growth is going to impact on tender prices. We've forecast there to tender prices in 2016. So we're saying 6 to 8% in Dublin, in the regions 5% in Northern Ireland, maybe 2 or 3%. So the last thing that I wanted to touch on, that's all technical information from our review. The last thing on our review that I wanted to just touch on was this was a photo of the AECOM senior management team from the 2015 review. And I'm just curious if there's anything that stands out to you about that picture. Say again? No women. Yeah, 100%. And when you're in an organisation like ours, of a particular scale, it becomes very apparent, and it's something that AECOM have become very focused on. I think the industry as a whole is becoming much more focused as well. So today is International Women's Day. We're marking that in our own organisations with some groups to talk about what we can do to improve the situation for ourselves and for the industry as a whole. We have instigated a diversity and inclusion programme within AECOM, and there are a series of things that one can look at that just focus your mind, and this is one of them. So what you see there are the stats in terms of the number of women in our organisation, and then the number of women in senior positions in our organisation. So you can see that in 2016 there was 28% women overall, but in terms of senior management there's only 11%. So we're looking at ways of how we can improve that and how it can be more reflective. And a lot of other people are looking at this as well. So I think that is an interesting thing that we're going to see over the next while. So looking ahead, some of the challenges that are out there, we're going to hear later from David on the changes to the government forms of contract and procurement. That is certainly making working in the public sector more attractive, but there are challenges there for the public sector when activity in the private commercial sector is so active. And a lot of clients in the private sector are moving away from tendering, moving more towards negotiation, which is much more attractive to contractors. So that is a challenge that I think we'll see more of over the years ahead. Another area where the industry is changing is just the level of regulation, standards and guidelines. I think we've all seen from the Priory Halls and other projects as to what the downside of having a lack of regulation is, but there is now a significant degree of regulation. And I think that's very relevant for all the students that are here, that you'll be coming fresh into the industry with a knowledge of these regulations and an aptitude to take them on. And similarly, in terms of technology, BIM technology is moving very fast. It is something that the whole industry needs to get up to speed with, and I know GMIT is at the forefront of that too. So what are the trends in the industry, and what does it mean for us as businesses and everybody as individuals in the industry? I think we need to be flexible, we need to be forward-looking, we need to be strategic, we need to be kind of looking ahead in the ways the industry is going and getting our businesses and getting our personal skills in the right shape for addressing that future industry. One of the trends is more towards specializations, and that's a product of the increasing complexity of the industry. So just to conclude, there are big positives out there. The growth in output is obviously fantastic, and along with it, the growth in employment. It's a more regulated and a more sophisticated and structured industry. It's a safer industry, and there are greater opportunities for everybody in the industry. There are a few buts there in terms of funding challenges. They still exist. A lot of the stuff that we're looking at in Dublin is funded by international funds that aren't dependent on local bank lending. In the West and in Galway, development is more dependent on that sort of funding, and there is still issues to get through there. The political uncertainty we've got at the moment, obviously uncertainty never helps the business environment. The capacity issues that I mentioned, and with that the shortage of skilled workers, skilled graduates coming out into the industry. So we need to work out how to get more people coming into the industry, how to get people to come back who've left the industry, and get people to come back home again. So for you as graduates and people who will be graduating over the next number of years, I think you are coming out at a very good time. There are great opportunities out there. There are opportunities in the West. There are also fantastic opportunities in Dublin and internationally with ourselves and with others. So on that note, I will finish up and be happy to take some questions from you with the others after. Thank you.
Thank you, John. The second speaker today is Michael Stone, and Mike is currently the president of the Construction Industry Federation, and he's going to speak to you today more maybe looking at some of the solutions might take us some of the places that John's just highlighted. So Michael's going to look at the obstacles and opportunities for our industry as we emerge from the economic crisis. So Michael, I suppose in his day job, when he's not being CIF president, is Chief Executive Officer of the Designer Group. So Michael founded Designer Group in 1992 after an extensive career with the ESB, and his vision has been instrumental in the development and advancement of Designer Group to its current position, where it's one of Ireland's leading engineering contractors. Group is also a respected name within the engineering sector within the UK. So we'll ask Michael to come forward and present for us now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to talk to you here this morning. GMIT, Department of Building and Civil Engineering Annual Conference, has become an established feature in the calendar for those involved in construction. I'd like to thank Martin and his team for running this exceptional event and for their commitment to the industry. Events like these really help us set out a vision for the construction industry and see how we can positively impact on the lives of everyone in Ireland. As President of the Construction Industry Federation, I'm delighted to see so many people here firstly today, but particularly so many young people. We need bright, educated and innovative people working in our industry. You will shape the Ireland that we build in the coming years. And I look forward to hearing your views and opinions throughout the morning. Just in terms of career opportunities, I mean, John has already touched that the industry is on the up, and thankfully after coming through that dreadful recession over the last 7 or 8 years, things are improving. And the construction industry generally lags the general economy, and when the economy improves, the construction improves up behind it. So, you know, we have a situation where we have there's a lot of opportunity in the industry. Most of companies working in the sector are taking on people at the moment. There's a large pipeline of projects around the country, particularly in the Greater Dublin area, but I'll touch on that later on. As a result of the demand, salaries are increasing, and that's very important. It's very important for us to attract good people into the industry, and that, and therefore, one of the ways that is that there are good wages and good facilities in the sector. And the importance of innovation in our industry, I'm going to touch on that later on as well. And I think it's also very important to note that the industry and the CIF needs to attract the best talent in order for us to deliver what needs to be delivered to develop the infrastructure of this country. Just to look at some of the, I suppose, of the average salaries, and I take these as sort of typical median salaries, taking both right around the country and a cross-section of wages. And you can see they're very respectable across the different professions. I would just look a couple of main points really regarding the importance of construction to the Irish economy. And you know, when we think about construction, unfortunately, the media generally focus on housing, and when we talk about construction, we can think that everybody that's working in construction, if you're to read the newspapers, is working in the housing sector, which is totally untrue. If we take things at the moment, for example, less than 10% of construction output is in housing. And that is, while that is recognised as being far too low, it probably should be between 20 and 25%. But most of the people working in the industry, or the 130,000 people working in the industry at the moment, are working in areas other than housing. And the industry represents, at the moment, is representing roughly 7.6% of GNP, which is way below what's deemed to be you know, a target of 12% across developed economies. Our industry employs the joint highest employer of people per sector in the country, employing over 130,000 at the moment, and that's growing all the time, and will continue to grow this year and into next year. And as John mentioned earlier on, we've got a fairly steep growth in output. Some say somewhere between 15 and 16 billion this year is what's anticipated, depending on the rollout of some of the government projects. Then we asked the question of, you know, where is my recovery? And I think, as John touched on earlier on, the election has been lost on this point, you know, because the government felt that there was you know, the recovery was being seen by all people around the country, but obviously that's not the case. But I do think that, you know, particularly for young people, and my own experience is that, for example, in my own business, we would employ about 120 apprentices, and over 2/3 of those will be country people, and they're all very, very anxious to come to the city to work. I think that's a trend that we're going to see more of, and where it's hugely important that we develop regional development, and I think that's something that we're really focused on in the CIF. I think there is a trend for people, more and more so, and it's around the world, moving to the urban areas and moving to the cities. And that's something that we have to accept. I mean, I drove down this morning to Dublin, I was here, I left area, I was here in under 2 hours. And I give an example of how people, you know, some to think, I'll give you a sporting analogy. I was in Croke Park last June for the first round of the Leinster Football Championship between Longford and Dublin. And there was a big controversy going on at the time, and it's going on this year again, about Dublin playing all their matches in Croke Park, and various county boards looking to, you know, say, look, this is an unfair advantage, and probably is an unfair advantage, I'll give it that. But I spoke to this friend of mine who's from Longford, and his brother was playing midfield for Longford that day, and he told me that in January, when the fixtures came about and they knew they were playing Dublin, the team met at a training session when it was being mooted that there was going to be an objection put in by the Longford County Board, and the team met amongst themselves and said, and went to the management and said, listen lads, if you try and move this match from Croke Park, we're out of here. We want to come to Croke Park. We want to play our game in Croke Park. This is the headquarters, and we want to go to Coppers on Sunday night, and that's what we train for every week. We can play in Longford any day of the week. So I think that it's really important that we develop these the regional development. I think there's far too much development in the Greater Dublin area, but I do think there's a fact out there, and that people are being drawn towards the cities, are being drawn towards the urban areas, and I think that you know, that needs to be taken into. I think it's more of a problem from, and I'm saying this from my own experience from speaking to people who work in my own business as well as people who work in the industry. I think it's more of a problem for older people talking about their kids going to the urban area rather than from the young people themselves. I look at our industry, and I look at the massive tradition that the west of Ireland has in construction. I look at, I would say, you know, most of the best construction people that I have met in my time both in Ireland and in the UK have come from the west of Ireland. There is a tradition down here of producing people who have a passion for construction, who understand construction. It's in their DNA, and I think that's a fantastic thing, and it's a great selling point. I even see that, and I found that in the UK when I've been working over in London. Again, a huge amount of people from the west of Ireland. They've built half of London, built the underground in London in the 60s, and are continuing to play a huge impact in that. So I think that's worth recognising and acknowledging. But as I said, there is a huge lack of infrastructural development, particularly on the western seaboard, and the industry itself are lobbying government on a very, very irregular basis to change that. Just touching on the housing crisis, again, we all know what's going on. There is a huge shortage, particularly in the urban areas. I think Fergal mentioned earlier on that there's a shortage of 4,500 houses in Galway, big shortages in Dublin. It is a very, very complex problem. I think we're going to need, when the new government is formed, a particular minister with specific powers to look at the industry itself, to have the power to deal with the various different departments, to take control of them in order to try and get some movement on this issue, because it's taking far too much time to sort out. Costs are too high, and I think the cost of finance is too high. Young people, it's too much money. This 20% deposit is too high, and they're going to have to do something around to bring some sort of element into bringing rental payments into the equation in terms of how you can come up with your 3.5 times earnings, etc. I think there is going to have to be some movement on that later in the year, and hopefully we'll see that. I do think as well that the industry has a part to play in this. I feel that for too long we've been looking at doing things the way we've always done them. I think there is a place now, and I'm going to touch on it later on, for off-site fabrication. I think you young people here in the audience here will have a huge role in playing that. I think construction is going to change. It's changing around the world, and we're behind the curve here in Ireland as to how we're taking on some of these ideas, and I'm going to touch on that later on. But I think that is possibly a way forward in getting to this solution. In modularisation, in off-site fabrication, are all areas that will speed up the development and reduce costs if you get scale involved. Come down here to Galway. The biggest employers in the region down here are FDI companies, and a lot of you people in the audience here hopefully will end up working for them. Fantastic companies that come here. They come here because one of the big reasons, and I was with the IDA back in January talking about how we can work together in a closer basis, the industry, to try and attract more companies coming in. And they said it was a huge selling point for them is the Irish construction industry, the quality of the buildings we build, the lack of industrial disputes. The jobs are built, they're built on programme, and for these companies that is an absolute huge issue and something they don't get in other areas around the world. And we should be very proud of ourselves on that. And you look at those stats there, the top 10 global pharma companies, tech companies, all in here in Ireland with businesses manufacturing and providing top-class jobs. And as I said, the industry has a huge role in that. And going forward, we need to be at the leading edge of things like BIM, things like lean construction. These are the things that these companies, American companies particularly want. They want these things, they're using them over in the States. They want young people who understand these processes, how they work, how they're put in place. And I would really encourage people to be focusing on that because that's what these companies want. We know there's a big project coming up in Athenry with the new data centre for Apple. That's a fantastic project for the region here. And again, it's going to bring a lot of employment here from the Galway, Mayo, Roscommon areas, which is going to be very positive. Demand for skills. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I think that the demand is changing. I look at, we already, in the 8 years of the recession that we had, there's been a big loss to the industry in terms of skills and technology. I can see the difference. There's a very noticeable difference in people, even at 30 years of age, to people at 20 years of age. People at 20 years of age, a lot of people in the audience here, they embrace technology. It's just part of their DNA again. They're just used to it. They're dealing with it every day of the week. And I think that is so important for us as an industry, that we embrace that. I don't think the industry in 20 years' time, we will recognise it from what it is now. If I look at, in 2006, there were 29,000 apprentices running through the system in Ireland, through the education system in Ireland. There's 6,500 now. I believe that apprenticeships and working in the industry is not as attractive as it should be. I think it's an absolute disgrace that there's practically no women working on trades. The reason that is that the facilities aren't there for them to work. The facilities on sites that are provided for our employers aren't good enough and need to be improved dramatically. I think it's no longer the case you're going to get people. Ignorance is a terrible thing, and one of the great things that we have is that with the work that's gone into our education system, the amount of people running through third level, young people now aren't going to accept standards, working standards or working conditions that are below the norm. And I think you look at these companies coming in, the Googles, the high-tech companies, the opportunities, the standards, the services they provide their employees are to the highest standard. And our industry needs to step up to the mark in terms of how we deliver our sites, how we deliver our projects. That's going to cost money, but the clients, good clients, are prepared to pay that. And if we get good clients doing good work, we will attract good people, and we need to attract the best people into our industry. I think that, I was to give an example, my own company was involved in a project for the Olympic Games in London in 2012. We did a media centre, which was housed 30,000 journalists and they controlled all the media, believing that for the whole Olympic Games. An 800,000 square foot building, and we looked after the electrical and mechanical installation on the job. We were 16 months preparing that job, designing it and preparing it. We had 20 engineers working on the job, and we built the job off-site. The job was fabricated off-site. Mechanical electrical installation was built off-site and brought to site and built in 26 weeks with 100 people. If we were doing that in a traditional method, we would have had 500 or 600 people working on the job. There would have been a huge amount of risk in terms of health and safety, in terms of the quality of the delivery. And you know, that's an example of what can be done, and that's an example of what engineering can do. And I think the future of our industry lies in our engineers and our technicians. I think you're going to see things done differently in years to come. BIM modelling is going to make that easier. It's going to make it more suitable. People are going to be building off-site. It's going to provide opportunities for companies to manufacture. So construction is going to become more of a manufacturing process than it is at the moment. That's going to take time. It'll start on the bigger jobs. It'll start on as many big jobs around Galway that have opportunities, the high-tech, the biotech industries, all those sort of data centres, huge opportunities. And I would really, really encourage the young people here to embrace those sort of things and think about that. Because I can tell you now, construction will not be the same going forward, because you won't get the people going into the industries. You won't get the 500 people to go onto the site to do it, because they won't want to. They want to be in different types of roles, designing the jobs, building the jobs in a manufacturing environment where you can bring more females in, for example, because you've got better working conditions. And I really believe that's the way forward. And as we raise our standards and become a high-tech, high-worth economy, that's a way forward for us. And I would really encourage you to think about those things and look at sort of, and I spoke earlier on to a couple of the people here, the head of engineering, Jerry, he was saying that they're looking at new courses here, splitting the the time between bringing on tradespeople to the next level, level 7, level 8 courses, bringing them further on, letting them develop their careers, because I think, again, there's opportunity there for that, and I think it's something that should be encouraged and needs to be encouraged. So, the CIF, they're trying to do things. They're trying to do things differently. For example, for years you'd hear people saying, how do you get an apprenticeship? You had to know somebody. You had to be, somebody who worked in a building company or electrical contracting company or wherever that was. There was no actual applications where someone who doesn't be involved in the industry can go and apply. So now we've set up a website where all the member companies, and there's 1,500 member companies in the CIF, and they put up, their companies put up on our website if they're taking on apprentices or if they're looking to take on apprentices, and allows people to apply and go through the process and get an opportunity to come into the trade and to enter into the industry. That's a good way of doing it, but we need more of those things where we've got career portals, so a lot of you will know about. We've got videos up on that giving demonstrations of the different trades and what it's like to work on those things. Again, we need more. We're getting there, but I think there's more to be done for the industry in attracting people in. The numbers increasing, yes they are, but they're coming from a very, very low base. There's not enough engineers coming through, there's not enough QSs coming through. We could have double the numbers and we wouldn't have the jobs for them. So I think that's positive, but it's creating its own problems. I'd like to touch then on the enhancement of the reputation of the industry. And John touched on it earlier on about the Priory Halls. And I've said in my role as the president of the industry that we can have no place for substandard work. We can have no place for people who are working in our industry who think they can get away with building substandard structures or carrying out substandard installations. It's just, and they need to face the rigours of the law if they attempt to do that. It is unacceptable that one or two people or one or two companies can bring down the whole face of the industry and all the work from the dedicated people that are doing around the country in building an industry and working for generations. I see a man here beside me here is a third generation builder, Noel. What a great family business he's built up. Paul Carey here, another person who's built up, his parents have built their business. Stewart, I see Sean Stewart there, fourth generation building contractors. They don't do bad work. They're not four generations in the industry working as companies by doing bad work. They do top quality work. That's the only place that there is in our industry is for top quality work. And that's why I would encourage, and we have encouraged, the bringing in of regulation, because we need regulation. I think this country has shown we need regulation. Self-regulation doesn't work in our industry. So, these new things, the likes of CIRI, the likes of these regulation bodies that are coming in, the likes of BCAR, yes, there is a cost to them, but the overall benefit in the quality of what we're delivering and the quality of the products that we're delivering, it will be to the greater good. We touched on this Minister of Construction, and I think that's so important. We do need one. Too many of the bodies, too many government ministers are interested in holding their budget because it gives them more power and more control. The likes of the Department of Education, the Department of Health, very large building budgets, and we need to have that under the control of a person who understands the industry, who understands what's going on, and who understands and has the power to make decisions quickly for the aid and the development of the industry. I think that's really, really important, and there's an opportunity there in doing that to create another 60,000 jobs. We also need to have a longer lookout. A 4-year lookout is no good for construction. You need at least a 10-year lookout. You look at the UK, for example, you look at how they always have large infrastructure projects looking ahead. If you took the Olympics was followed on by Crossrail. That's followed on by the nuclear power plants developing now that are coming on stream. And then you have the HS2, the mainline train upgrades from London to Bern. Massive billion. You've got the likes of Heathrow, another 10, 12-year project looking out. We need that in Ireland as well, so that we can plan ahead, so that people can say they have a future, not just people coming in, doing a degree course, coming out, and you have this up and down the sine curve that we've had for so long in this country. We need to look ahead. We need to be able to say, look, these jobs are coming down the line. It's a good career to come into, because it is a great career. Engineering and construction industry is a fabulous career. You've got so much opportunity, so much you can do out there, so much of the world you can see. It's exciting, and and we need to sell that better, and that's why we need a minister for it. And I think that's so important, and we're going to be lobbying for that. So I look forward to hearing your questions later on, and thank you for your attention.
Rangers of the Guard. Well, thank you, Michael, for that very entertaining and thoughtful presentation. It's a question I've often pondered, the off-site manufacture and the potential for the west of Ireland to actually keep jobs here. I was doing a class last week with the second years, and I mentioned in May this year, for example, I was in just outside Wembley Stadium, 22-storey student accommodation block, visiting some of our students on placement there. And I turned around and 3 lorry loads of precast walling from Oranmore Precast in Galway pulled in the gate behind me. And also Shay Murta, who spoke at the contract. I visited the Crossrail project as well with another student. It was the largest project in Europe. And Shay Murta, again from Ireland, providing the tunnel under the Thames. Definitely a way to go and a way is to keeping jobs locally as well. So perhaps nothing gives us so much pleasure in the Department of Building and Civil Engineering than when one of our own comes home to present to us. So our next speaker is Noel Conroy. Noel's a GMIT construction management graduate and is now head of the Irish operations for MJ Conroy, overseeing all operations in the Irish sector of the can't say a construction and property group and many other things since I've been chatting to Noel. So today Noel's going to give a very personal view and cover the evolution of the MJ Conroy Group, his family business, and he'll also reflect on working with foreign multinationals, worked with John up at HP in Parkmore there. And also some words of advice on students that follow him as graduates of GMIT and just some pointers and things he's learned along the way. So we'll ask Noel to come forward now. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Martin, thanks for the introduction. I got a phone call back in October, I think, or November, late October, November, and I didn't recognise the number. And I said, look, I won't bother listening to the voicemail, I'll ring back. And who was it but John Hanno answered anyway, and I just had a big smile on my face. And first thing he said to me is, I bet you're sorry you answered that phone call, no. So, look, I answered it, I came in to meet himself and Martin. To be honest, I'm thrilled to be back. It's a big honour for me, myself, and my family to put our business on display here, so thanks for having me along. So I'm head of our Irish operation. We'll see later on we've diversified into a property and into a actual agriculture industry. High construction value projects. A lot of
Will give out.
Oh yeah.
Do that now. Because I'm doing it.
Yeah. So it's not cooking.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely got better at it.
It's all very darky last week. And I wondered. And
I go, oh, yeah. I turned my phone off anyway, so it's not mine. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. That wasn't my phone, mine's off. So yeah, I started in GMIT. I came through the Castlebar route, kept it local, kept my Mayo roots. Came up here to Galway, did the DIP and the Bachelor of Science in Construction Management in 2003, 2005. We're a family firm over, as Michael said, over 3 generations. My grandfather, Michael J. Conroy, started the business in 1932. My dad and his two brothers took on the business and developed it up through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the third generation's come through. Someone, I was just saying it to Michael earlier, someone said to me last week, the second generation is 50% likely to, run the business into the ground. The third generation is 80% likely, so we'll give it we'll try and avoid that stat, but we'll see how we go anyway. We put a huge amount of emphasis in our business, and before me as well, on relationships. And Michael kind of echoed it earlier. We see the construction industry changing. It doesn't seem to be where there's bill of quantities coming in and price that, and best price wins all the time. There's a lot of relationship focused work whereby the client wants to establish a relationship with you, know the quality of work you're going to do, and bring value engineering to the table straight off. A lot of the clients that we work with, the FDI clients, they've high quality people working for them. They know if you're basically ripping them off or not, so they know that you're doing cost sensitive work for them and you're doing good value for them. So a relationship is a huge part of our business, and long-term relationships. A huge part of our business is long-term clients, which you'll see later on as well. So we've concentrated always on the construction side of our business, in the pharmaceutical, high-end commercial and IT turnkey projects as well. We've never really got into the residential space for, there was pros and cons to that throughout the years, but that picture there is the city centre of Cong, my grandfather there. So established my grandfather, began as a construction company, carried out main contracting works on commercial, when Bank of Ireland and AIB bought a lot of smaller banks, that was the sort of projects our dad, our uncles got involved in the changing of them into Bank of Ireland and AIBs. Focused a lot and continued to focus on the pharmaceutical industry, to work with the likes of Michael and his firm in that space as well, and commercial property and commercial IT fit-outs. We quickly built up a reputation as one of the most respected main contractors in the west of Ireland. And as I just said, reputation and relationships is a huge thing for us, and something that we all put a huge amount of time into. Commercial property, we diversified in the 1970s into the commercial property space. Two of the first kind of bigger plays were two of the probably well-known properties in Galway, Island House in Cathedral Square and Moralty House on Flood Street, which we still own, operate and manage. The relationship, as I said, is a big thing for us, and the high-end construction projects. We're with Boston Scientific. We've actually, almost like Facilities Group, permanently in that facility, in there, a strong staff of between 10 and 20 guys in there on a permanent basis. So Boston Scientific have been a very good company with us, and we see ourselves not as a contractor with them, but as a partner, trying to bring value engineering solutions to them. And likewise with the likes of Allergan, there's a huge value in trying to get to know your client, know your client's business, so that even before they see a problem, or if there's a solution there, that you're bringing that solution to them. You're becoming part of their business, their day-to-day business. Along with the commercial properties in Galway, we also started building strong relationships with the IDA. Done a lot of the advanced factories, like other similar Galway builders as well, along the western seaboard. These are some of the ones in Galway: the Merit Medical, Medtronic, and EA Sports. They were projects that we actually funded with the IDA. Sorry, we funded. The IDA gave us the sites for them. That gave the facility for the IDA to attract clients in, fully funded by ourselves. And they turned out to be some of the biggest employers: Merit Medical, Medtronic, EA Sports, huge employers now in Galway. So that's a huge privilege for us to be part of, and developing them sort of projects was an aim of ours, and continues to be an aim of ours, because it keeps us in the space of working with a high-end client, where they very much value a relationship type of business with you. And that's just some of the clients that we do our day to work with. As the guy said earlier on, the FTI is a big focus on the western region, so obviously that's what we're targeting as well. In the late 1990s, when some of the Eastern European countries started to come into the European Union, we started, thinking about, what's property like in them countries. So we had a look at it. We dipped our toe in it. Firstly in Latvia and Lithuania in 1998, 99. We made some commercial property plays there that worked out well. Again, we focused on commercial. We didn't get into the residential side. And we also dipped our toe into agriculture actually in Latvia as well, where we actually started acquiring individual plots of land and we formed a farm of around between 2,000 and 3,000 hectare farm. So we found that was a really exciting business to get into. There was good capital growth in the value that we got into, and we've seen that the Irish property industry was flying here as well. But we said it worked out a good play for us at the time. So we're interested in it. In 2003, 2005, we diversified further into Serbia. It kind of gives quivers to a lot of people when you mention, the Serbian, but it's a really exciting place to be. You can see in the map there the strategic location of it. It's on the doorstep of the Middle East in Europe. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that now. Instead, we got into the commercial property space, not really residential. With logistics centres in Riga and Belgrade. For instance, in Belgrade, it's a logistics centre with Kuhn and Nagel, again aiming towards the high-end clients, that there's a long-term future with office accommodation in Vilnius. Baltic Air was a company that was in there. And commercial agriculture, we got into commercial agriculture in quite a big way in Serbia, where we bought 5 farmer companies out there from the Serbian Stock Exchange, and we're now farming 6,000 hectares. I think that's 14.5, nearly 15,000 acres. So we've actually intensive commercial and tillage farming out there. Again, the client base we have out there is Syngenta and Pioneer, two of the biggest seed manufacturers in the country, where we grow a high-end crop, a certified crop for them. It's not a normal mercantile crop. We're employing, I think, about 200 people out there at the minute. And we've large dairy enterprise producing around 8 million litres of milk a year. So again, that's what Amlec. So we're a huge producer of different types of crops out there. Pepsi is one of our biggest clients as well. They actually grow a huge amount of potatoes for Pepsi. Pepsi don't put potatoes into their drinks. They actually bought, as a lot of people kind of raise their eyebrows at me when I tell that one, but Pepsi bought the company that manufactures, I think, Lay's crisps, or one of those big crisps. So they have a huge market out there. So we actually grow the potatoes for Pepsi. So again, like the business that we have here in Ireland, the high-end construction, we try to target a certain level of client all the time that requires a huge amount of investment in your time and work to establish a relationship and a trust, but once you get there, we feel it's really worth it. So that diversification, a lot of people say, why did you do that? It was a big play, a big risk, because in 2005, there was the Irish market was absolutely flying. Commercial property, everyone was having a great time altogether. So I remember a story I often tell is that we priced a local enough project. Won't get too specific, but it was around a 10 million euro project, and we said we'd go quite competitive for it. So we went competitive for it, and we didn't get the job. The guy that got it, we put in a price around 10 million. They got the job over 9 million, and the guy that won it was a carpenter. A few years beforehand, he was literally working out of his van. So that was back in that time, and we kind of took stock of ourselves and said, look, this thing is going crazy. So we sold some of our Irish property portfolio in 2005 and went into the Serbian market and went into the farming industry, where we thought there's always going to be big demand for food. So we said we'd keep our high-end construction projects here with our clients, such as the Allergan, Baxter, Boston Scientific, HP. Well, HP wasn't a client at the time, but Covidien, that sort of projects, and spread our risk, diversify. So it was a big play, a big risk, but it worked out well, because as John put up the graph earlier on with his curve, around 2010, you know, we looked at the HP project and it gave us quite a strong balance sheet. So we felt we had a diverse, flexible range of businesses and that we could facilitate growth quite easily. And that diversification reduced the impact of the recession on our company and strengthened our balance sheet. So that brought us to 2011, where that diversification played back into the case study that I worked with John on. Great job, highly recommend him. For HP here in Galway, which is great news for Galway that HP they're there 35 years, too digital and all that. They said, look, we're going to reinvest in Galway. They have a headcount, so they put a requirement out, and Patricia there gave me the call and said, no, would you be interested in bidding for this? So I said, absolutely, let's go for it. So it was a really exciting project for Galway, and I felt it could change the landscape, you know, of what we do, and, you know, landmark project for Galway that could let other things happen as well. So HP sent out a request for proposal in June 11. They filled out their objectives, their design objective. The design objective, you know, they wanted about 100,000 square feet of a building. Had to be flexible design, had to be able to be sublet, and fit all their open plan requirements at the same time. You had to obtain planning permission, you had to fund it, build it, and asset manage it. So we put a team together, a very strong local team, with the guys here, led by Patricia through DTZ, John O'Regan and ACOM. We used Taylor Architects, Castlebar, ARPS here in Galway as well, and RPS as well. So really, really strong team. That's the site there. Most of you are probably familiar with it, Boston Scientific. Outlined in red, the box to the top right-hand corner of the red box is their old building, 130,000 square feet, which we bought with the deal. So the deal was a buy and lease back. So the information to be provided with the submission was the information on the entity making the bid ourselves, proposed heads of terms, confirm you comply with the HP spec, which was quite demanding at the time, so there's a design spec and a performance spec with the building, proof of funding, and that goes back to my previous point, the diversification. You know, we're bidding against all of the top guys in the country at the time, and you know, we were pretty unknown to, I suppose, a lot of people, but we had a really strong balance sheet and continue to do so. So that really gave the client a lot of confidence in us. Track record of similar projects, which we had a track record of similar projects, maybe not all as big, but track record of the high-end construction and doing a turnkey project with the IDA, so that all fitted well as well. The professional team dedicated to it, I feel we probably one of the strongest teams in the country available that could do that team, and in my opinion it was a huge part of us winning that project, from the likes of the DTZ and ACOM to do that. Proof insurance, you have to have your PI insurance as well as your normal contractor's insurance, and the usual schedule of landlord's credits. So the bid submission was in 2011. HP reviews and interviews, there's presentations, all sorts of stuff like that, and reviews between the two design teams. As the terms were agreed, the bid was awarded in March 2012. I'm just trying to emphasise there the amount of work, and Michael kind of mentioned it earlier, with the huge amount of planning that goes in, but not as much here. It was more went into legal and financial and design, not as much off-site construction. But the amount of work that could happen in one of those projects, the huge amount of time, the actual time it took to prepare for the project was longer than the time it took to build the project. So a huge amount of pre-contract work, and you can imagine when we went into the bank manager said, look, we want to build a 90,000 square foot building out in Ballybrit, before telling him that you had a possible tenant, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. So it was a real challenge to try and make everyone comfortable with it. Everyone in the industry was nervous, especially from a financial and legal perspective. What's going to happen? What sort of parent guarantee or HP going to bring to the table? There's a lot of nervousness around it. So to secure development finance and to turn around that project was a serious feat at the time. Just to give you a little sense of it, this is the actual building we built. On the left there was the old football pitch. On the right is the old building. The new building on the left there, it's 3-storey, divided into 3 wings with a central core. Very flexible building. It could work with, quite easily work with 9 tenants in that building. So again, that fitted go back to the design requirement, and we ourselves, we had to be happy with it as well for the goal requirement. If HP, when their lease expires or whatever, that we're comfortable that what we're bringing to the market works for the Galway market. So that's the design of it. And just a couple of images of the finished building. HP are in it. They're very happy, and hopefully they're going to make it a bit bigger as well. It'll be nice. Again, great for Galway, So I suppose the future for us, for MJ Conroy's, is to continue and expand our high-end construction projects at the pharmaceutical industry and the IT industry, to keep aiming towards that sort of clientele that we've always aimed for and worked well with. This is some of the current projects we have at the minute. Again, Boston Scientific, doing work with Mike out in Medtronic, HP. HP are expanding. We've done a new cybersecurity centre for them in there, which is a phenomenal installation actually. Allergan, Shannon Airport, Atlantic Aviation, and hopefully doing some stuff with the IDA as well. But they're one of the partners that you always liaise with. You don't get contracts from them, but they're the people you're always talking to try and aim to bring the property solutions to Galway. Ties into my next point. That's what we'd like to do going forward, is to address the lack of commercial property solutions in Galway. Continue to expand our international operation. The Irish construction industry, just threw down some thoughts on this, where is it going to go, and just echoing, I suppose, a lot of what John and Mick said earlier. The private sector has largely been concentrated in the Dublin area. There's been very, very little that's happened, especially in the Galway region. Interested to see what happens with its approach to risk by main contractors. In my own opinion, going forward, will we see the back of underpriced tendering going forward, or where's that going to go? Because there seems to be a lot of the same vicious circle turning. So I'd like to see something happen there. I don't know, to be honest, what can happen, but it'd be nice to see what could happen. The makeup of the Irish government, I'd like stability. We'd all like stability going forward. And I'm not going to get into it, but the boost on how would government boost housing, John covered all the numbers there. The VAT may be something to look at, or there's a proposed development contribution rebate, which will be interesting one as well. Lack of infrastructure. Government finance and changes by government or the pillar banks on development finance might be something to target, We did bail a lot of them out. We brought we approached them with development opportunities. How eager are they for risk? They all say they see lack of product in the market, but how are they going to address that? There's obviously global concerns. The euro area really concerning. A certain global outlook. The emerging economies, China and Donald Trump, for me personally, is a big worry as well. It's the traction he's got in the States, and so that, and the Brexit and the value of the sterling and the euro. So I very much focus, have an awareness of the global outlook, because all of our clients are they're FTI clients. So again, it goes back to relationship and trying to get to know your clients so that you get to know their business, so you have an appreciation what their worries are, so that you can bring them to your own business and try and find solutions for them. Some prospects for the GMIT graduates, again what the guy said, and Mick went into it in a lot of detail. There's huge prospects out there. All local companies, everyone's looking for good graduates to come out of there. I threw in the bottom there. I know a lot of people that have come out of the property course in GMIT. I'd love to see a return of it, because a lot of people that went through it have done really, really well in the industry. Martin asked me to put down a bit of advice maybe for students, and to be honest, I'm no one to be giving advice, but I'd throw a bit out there. Think of your career as a series of experiences. Don't be like a horse with blinkers. And what I mean there for students is that when you go out into the industry, you might go out and be asked to set out a building, or do concrete cubes and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I would always be trying to reiterate to someone, you know, try and look what else is going on in the job. You know, first of all, why is that building there? If it's a public building or if it's a private building, you know, who's the client or how's it being funded or how the guy's managing the job, you know. You know, what, I'm trying to find out what's the value of the job, you know, what's the program on it, find out all the different things around it, because if you just have the blinkers on, I feel that, you know, you won't see all the opportunities that could possibly come your way. Be passionate about your job, focused on the relationship quality. I think there's a huge amount to be gained by talking to loads of different types of people, spend more time with people than your laptop. Easier said than done, but you know, you gain so much from talking to different people, no matter what industry they're in. Learn culture. Yeah, I went to Australia. I'd love to go back, but I had to come back and try and get into the good times a long time ago now. And be aware of the global marketplace. We're in like the global marketplace is so small. We're in an international market. Don't just cocoon yourself into Galway, Dublin, Ireland. You know, the construction market is global. Try and get experience out there as well. Have fun. So that's it for me, and thanks to everyone for having me. Cheers.
No, thanks, Noel. Very thoughtful presentation. Time for a few questions. If anybody in the audience has questions for the panel. Come on. You're all impressed. Which? Any questions for us? No? Sorry, Chris. Give us.
Thank you, John. Yeah. It's a question about off-site production. I'd really like to know what's stopping off-site production in Ireland, and I suppose it's directed at you initially, Michael, but perhaps John might have a view on that too. Is it investment? Is it people frightened that they can't see what's being built because it's too far away before it's brought to site? Do you have a view?
I think there's a number of things, a number of factors. I think one is the culture. I think it's people are just, you know, reluctant to do it because they've always done it a certain way. That's one factor. I think that it's also the way we do our jobs here in terms of designing the jobs. I think one thing with off-site fabrication is the project has to be fully designed out and signed off before you go to tender. And if I give an example, if I have a business in the UK, we don't have our work, our budgeted work, booked 3 months before the end of the year. We won't do that. We will not book and do work in the UK in the calendar year. Typically in Ireland, if I have 50% of our workload booked going into the year, of my calendar workload booked, I won't be too worried. There'll be an opportunity for me to. So typically in Ireland, you have situations where you have a job being tendered 1st of January, goes to tender for a 3-week tender period, 4-week tender period. End of January, bids come back, client takes his time, or goes through the bids and appoints a contractor end of February. You start work middle of March. That doesn't allow for off-site fabrication. So I think the way, I think there needs to be more, in order to allow off-site fabrication, you need to have more, the job needs to be designed out, more emphasis on the design, more emphasis on the front end of the job, the pre-construction front end of the job needs to be far more emphasis put on that. So it allows you to get your procurement right, it allows you to get your design fixed, it allows you to get your job built. I mean, Martin mentioned 2 companies there, you know, that embrace this in Ireland. Unbelievable work being done. World-leading work. You think that an Irish company in the middle of Westmeath is putting in the Crossrail tunnel. You would not think that's, that would be possible in terms of transport costs. Each one of those items has to be put in the back of a lorry and brought over in a ferry and brought over, and yet it's still economically viable. So I think there's a huge future. I think people just need to look at it differently. And I think that it's going to be forced on us because I don't think the labour is going to be there going forward. I don't think you're going to have the Irish labour force in 20 years' time available to go and build the jobs that we traditionally do. So it's going to be forced on us. I think BIM as well is going to have this huge advances there in technology to allow you to go and build these products off-site and build them to a greater quality and with much more precision. So I think there's a lot of things coming in line now that are going to see this thing taking off.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, Michael, just a question for you in relation to a point John made in relation to the existence of the two-tier economy. And I suppose to some extent the anecdotal evidence seems to be that the gap seems to be widening as opposed to narrowing. What your feedback from members has been in the last 6 months in respect of the tracking business?
Well, I think as a people, we're always very good at playing things down. And I was down at the Mayo branch meeting, Northwest branch meeting in November, and I went into the meeting. There was probably about 40 contractors there, and they gave me the usual. It's all right for you coming down from Dublin and all this. I mean, I was obviously in Limerick as well, and they gave it the usual bit of slagging going on, and that was grand. And things are really bad down here, and there's no stuff. But then when I got outside with the lads afterwards, had a cup of tea with them and a chat. Yeah, well, how are you? How are things towards last year? Well, then we're up 20%. We're up 25%. It's just coming off a very, very low base. I think that you are going to have things start in Dublin and it moving out from there. But I do think it's more serious than that. So I think, if to answer Thomas, I think that things are improving in the region. I think the government jobs are going to be a huge, they're a huge work winner. And John touched on earlier on. I think the public sector work is far, far more important to the regions than it is to Dublin, for example. Schools programs, the Irish Water, all that frame, that civil work, that's all local work that needs to be pushed on. And certainly, from a policy point of view, I think that that's where the spend on infrastructure will benefit the regions far greater, I think, than Dublin. And that's why there needs to be a push and almost a positive discrimination put towards those sort of projects to get things going in the regions. And certainly that's what we've been lobbying government for in the last while. And it was mentioned earlier on about the capital spending programme. And to be honest with you, I think it is. I won't say a disgrace, because in the overall terms of things, it sounds like an awful lot of money. 27 million, some would say, others would say it's 42 million, but a lot of it was old stuff. But it is a huge amount of it back-ended. It's look at things like the Metro North. Whereas I felt like projects like, for example, the continuation of the motorway system along the west, the Cork to Limerick motorway. Those are projects that they're not quite shovel ready, but there's a lot of work being done on them, and it could be advanced very quickly and got going very quickly, and being a huge amount of development and potential growth to those areas. So that's where I think the growth needs to be done, and I think the improvement and the work that's been done on it. I see Dave O'Brien here today, and the work that's been done by the Government Contracts Committee in reforming the contracts, because that is a huge issue. An awful lot of our contracting companies literally pulled out of public sector work because of the risks involved. And I think you're going to see them. We need our best companies bidding for public sector work. And I think with the review that's taking place in reform, you're going to see that. And I think that's going to be good for the industry. And I think we need to. But again, I'll finish up by saying I think that the industry, I'm talking about our industry and our member companies, also need to take a stand in terms of how their approach on this. There's been an element in the past of legal actions being taken in terms of jobs, objection to jobs being sought and jobs being won, and our industry needs to take to cop onto themselves and look at the greater good. And when a project gets going, I mean, that project out the back there was delayed. A number of other projects have been delayed. I don't think that's acceptable. I think we need to be pushing forward, and when there's opportunities to go and build jobs, we need to go and build it, particularly in the cities.
Thank you. So it's an interesting discussion. We're mindful we're running slightly late. We could break in a moment for tea, with 15-minute tea break in the foyer here. After the break, we're looking at the housing crisis back in this room, and technical case studies behind me in room 994. So just maybe we'd show our appreciation to our three excellent speakers.